what's up, guys? Comic Book Debate here, and today we got a quick update for you guys. Breaking news, according to Deadline, Sony has axed their deal with Disney to share Spider-Man between the MCU and their own company. The deal apparently was once, as always, a problem of money. Disney wanted a financial stake, meaning they wanted a higher cut of profits after every Spider-Man movie. Considering their last Spider-Man movie, Far From Home, got $1 billion, they wanted a higher share of future Tom Holland films. Unfortunately, Sony's like, we ain't giving you any money. We want the most of the shares. Spider-Man is our character. And after a bad round of negotiations, the deal is over. Sony is pulling out of the MCU, and Spider-Man will continue without any involvement or connection to that universe. The good news coming out of this is that Tom Holland is still on contract for 2 more movies, and Sony is standing by him, and they want to make 2 more solo films with Spider-Man alongside who knows what other movies they have in mind. So I'll just open the floor right now with Zion. What do you think about this news? It's really huge news coming out of the MCU.
I think this is, like I said, it's huge news. I mean, Spider-Man's like the marquee character for Marvel, and I know the MCU is trying to build this huge thing and have Spider-Man obviously be one of the big forefront characters now that the original Avengers, like, their time is over. But honestly, though I liked his interaction with the MCU and on the Avengers and those kind of big event films, for the sake of his solo films, after seeing Homecoming and Far From Home, and how tied to the hip they were to the MCU, they almost hindered Spider-Man's own films and his own, like, Spider-Man has one of the best, most richest characters in worlds in comics, and that connection to the MCU kind of hindered a lot of that. Almost all of the characters in his films were shells of their actual comic selves, and I feel like maybe this divide will allow his characters and his films to become more pure in a sense, and allow them to grow and have them dive into more famous and more, I guess, intense Spider-Man stories from the comics.
It's like more of his own world.
Exactly. So I feel like, though in a big sense, you think that, oh man, he's not going to be in the Avengers, quote unquote. We don't know how that's going to work out in the future, but I think for the time being, for his immediate own personal films, I think this is the best move that could have been done.
So I agree with Jan on the fact that I think for right now, I think it's the best move possible because, again, the solo films that they released, in my opinion, like Homecoming, I didn't like. I'm not gonna lie. Far From Home was It has some good, like, as a film itself, it was But obviously, when you compare it to like Tobey Maguire Spider-Man or Andrew Garfield, you do feel like the MCU as a world had like the MCU was the world in which this Spider-Man was in, rather than the Spider-Man's world being within the MCU. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
Like with Black Panther, you feel like it's his world. With Iron Man solo films, you feel like it's his thing. With Thor, you feel like it's his own thing. And every character has his world being a part of the larger universe, which is the MCU. But with Spider-Man, for some weird reason, it feels like you just have his character and he happens to be in the MCU. Like, that's it. And that's
Yeah, he didn't get a chance to carve his own identity. Like, for he was in 5 different MCU movies, right?
Yeah.
From the 3 Russo brothers movies, Civil War, Infinity War, and Endgame, and then his 2 solo films, and all of them revolved around his relationship with Tony Stark, which is not a bad thing. But for 5 straight films, it being just about, his entire world revolves around being kind of obsessed with Tony Stark, and then obviously the latter 2 films are dealing with his death, but that was his whole character. Like, they never gave him even one movie where he's not interacting with.
I also think, like, on the flip side of things, I still enjoyed that aspect. Like, I still enjoyed seeing him. Like, obviously, it's amazing to see him interact with Iron Man,
sure,
with Black Panther. I mean,
I just think that his
all of them.
I agree. I think that the best moments are when he's in those crossover films. But when even his solo films are completely about other characters, like, for example, Mysterio, Jake Gyllenhaal's character, he doesn't even hate Spider-Man. He just hates Iron Man. And then by association, he hates Spider-Man. And then same thing with Homecoming, with Vulture. He also just disliked Tony Stark. So it's like, how many Spider-Man villains have to hate Tony Stark before they hate Spider-Man? Like, why can't they just hate Spider-Man for Spider-Man's sake, or battle Spider-Man for Spider-Man's sake? So I think, yeah, go ahead.
So here's my thing on that, right? If you're building a universe, that is like you have to, like, in my opinion, the fans can believe whatever the fans want, right? Like, it's up to you. Like, no one's gonna tell you how to think, but we can only, like, from my personal point of view, right? If you're making a universe, then just by the nature of you making a universe, you have to give up some things. Like, something, especially they chose to bring in Spider-Man like pretty late into what they were doing, right? If they, you know, if they brought him in earlier, where he has his own solo film, like in the first phase or the second phase, right? Then maybe you could have a story where it is specific to him. But I feel like they brought him in so late that they didn't want to do the time jump thing with, like they did with Captain Marvel, where like you see her solo film and it happened a long time ago, and then they bring her into the future or whatever, or into the present. So you take an L sometimes from a storytelling standpoint, because you can't sometimes tell the stories you want to tell without breaking the universe apart. But then this is why this move is good, I think, from a temporary standpoint. I think temporarily, it'll be good to see him. Let's see what he does in his own world. But I do want to see him return.
Good point.
And I want him to have the same thing as Tony Stark. Like, one of the good things about the universe thing is, like, you can have parallels. Imagine if this guy gave up his life like 10 years from now when he got older.
Yeah.
And he gave up his life to save the universe. It would be amazing.
I think it's pretty whack since they were trying to replace Iron Man with Spider-Man. And, you know, that's like the focus of the whole MCU now. So it's kind of whack that they don't have Spider-Man, but I don't mind. Like, would they bring him into the Sonyverse with Venom and shit?
Yeah, that's the plan. They're going to be giving him his own. He's going to have 2 more films in the new Sonyverse with potentially Venom and Jared Leto's film as well.
I'm not going to lie, that would be pretty sick.
So you think
Even though it's whack for the MCU.
Do you think it's sicker? Would you rather him be alone now, or do you prefer him being with the MCU like you saw in Far From Home?
No, with the MCU, he would be with, like, the X-Men and whatever, Fantastic Four. What? Yeah. Fantastic Four? What was it called?
Yeah.
Yeah, but I think they had 2 different plans probably set up from the start. Like, they probably didn't have a plan where it was just on Tom Holland and everything was about Spider-Man and everything. So they probably had a plan with him not being in the deal, like not getting the rights, which has come to be.
But they were going to make 9 movies.
Yeah, I guess that's not the plan anymore. I guess now they're gonna, we don't know what's gonna happen in the future, but for now it seems like at least for the next 2 movies, we're gonna have a disconnected Tom Holland from the MCU.
You mentioned the 9 movies is the perfect example of why this was a good move being made.
And just jumping off Zian's point, he just said right now, the idea of that 9 films arc that MCU was planning, that's down the drain now, right? And now we're looking at a 7-film arc, not even 7-film. If he's out of the MCU, it's a dangerous thing. It's hard to tell. Like, are they just not going to mention the MCU, or are they still going to pretend like they're in the MCU, just not say anything? Like, where do you guys think that comes from?
So I think,
like, the next Spider-Man film, we know Spider-Man left off with J.K. Simmons, J. Jonah Jameson saying, Spider-Man is Peter Parker. Is the next Spider-Man film going to follow that? Or is it just a reboot, like soft reboot, where the next Spider-Man is just a Spider-Man film? They're not going to address that, whatever that was.
I think there's a sick idea. I think what they could do is they could do the first solo film that the MCU should have done, which was the Uncle Ben stuff. Redo that stuff. That's it.
Like a
Put it in the past.
Like a prequel to Civil War.
I don't think that's a good idea.
Yeah. Put it in the past. Because he was already Spider-Man.
He had a bad costume, but yeah, he was kind of like Spider-Man.
already. So do an origin story.
I think at this point, that's not the right move they should make.
Only because Tom Holland was older also than he did back
Tom
then.
older, but also, even within the movies, they kind of showed his growth already. So you don't have to see, like, there's nothing to gain by seeing him first time becoming Spider-Man, then realizing it, because he still doesn't figure out what kind of Spider-Man he is.
But we haven't answered.
Even Far From Home.
We haven't answered the pressing question. Is this going to be a continuation of Far From Home or not?
Let me get to that. I think it will be a continuation, but if the MCU had plans to make it a big thing, I don't think it will be. I think if this will be resolved within this film, and they're just going to drop it, like, as fast as possible. I think it's too big to just out of nowhere just make it disappear. So they'll have to resolve for the next film. But I think after that, they're gonna just like they're gonna make everyone forget that he was Peter Parker. They won't even mention that was once upon a time thing.
The only idea I could even think of is that he's saying Spider-Man is that, and I don't know, maybe like Peter Parker comes out and says, "No, it's not. Like I'm not Spider-Man," and then at the same time Venom shows up somehow, and then Venom becomes like Spider-Man, and takes the blame. I don't know. I can't think of what they're trying to do, but we know Venom 2 is coming out, and Andy Serkis is directing it, so they have some good talent on Venom.
That's true. And like Samir said, that the big idea would probably be to fit him into this universe.
Yeah, you have to fit him to Venom, and then Jared Leto's Morbius. They got to fit it into this now, and eventually, this is what Deadline said, that eventually the door's not closed forever. Meaning, let's say they make the next 2 Spider-Man films, and they do okay numbers, or they make $1 billion, they do really good, right? For the next Avengers movie, they can make a one-time deal to bring him in. You know what I'm saying? Like a one-time deal. I don't know if that makes sense.
No, that's possible. You don't have to. His films, individual films, don't have to be allowed in the MCU at all.
And remember, they didn't even announce Avengers 5, so we don't know when that's coming
Exactly.
out. Avengers
For the event films, why can't you have everybody come together? Like that, it doesn't hurt either of the individual characters if you do.
Remember, again, it's a lot of money, because the only reason Sony ran away is because Disney said, give us more money. That's why it happened. It didn't happen because Far From Home flopped. Far From had the highest box office of any Spider-Man film, and the Rotten Tomatoes was pretty good too. So it was liked by everyone in a sense. So them leaving is a dangerous precedent. But from my understanding, they're also saying that they have interest in bringing the same director back, which I thought was weird. They want to bring Jon Watts back, so I think maybe they want to continue.
I think that's what I'm saying. I think just for the next film, let him finish up whatever they were doing.
Like his trilogy.
I think just after that, stay far away from anything they have in mind.
What do you think, Omar? What do you think about all this? Like the idea of Venom, Sinister Six. Like where do they go from here? Like do they even soft reboot? Do they keep MJ? Do they keep Aunt May? Do they recast those characters? How do you think they handle it?
Well, here's the thing. I think everyone would be really happy if they recasted Aunt May, because she's a freaking idiot in this universe. But, but I think you keep the characters. I think you can keep the characters. You can change the tone a little bit. We all know the MCU is like all jokes. There's a way to really, and it's not even fix issues. As you said, like Rotten Tomatoes score, and the fans generally speaking, they liked what they saw with the universe. And that's why I found really surprising is like, usually these things happen when the fans aren't happy or when the money didn't work.
Yeah, you know, as DCEU fans, we know this reality well. The MCU fans actually never lived it. They're living it now. The idea that they're not going to see Spider-Man team up with any of the new Avengers or anything like that. The only good news is, I think they won't be shy from making big decisions, like a live-action Spider-Verse movie, or introducing Miles Morales into Tom Holland's world, or even bringing Tobey Maguire back and doing like a Spider-Verse, all the Spider-Man's reaction.
Okay,
like
low key.
Now that Sony owns it, they can do it. Like that. What's it called? Tobey Maguire was their Spider-Man. Andrew Garfield was their Spider-Man. Now they have Spider-Man back at home at their own house. They can pull off a big crossover event. And trust me, they pull off a crossover with Andrew Garfield, Tobey Maguire, and Tom Holland in one movie, everyone's going to forget that Iron Man and Spider-Man were in the same movie once. Like, it's going to be a forgotten thing.
It will be, I know.
So, let's see what happens. I mean, it's a divisive thing, but I'm interested to see how this universe plays out going forward. For the MCU, this is a big loss because they wanted Spider-Man to be their big... Remember, the whole theme of Far From Home was that, you're the next Iron Man. Like, that was the theme. And that's what they wanted him to be, the champion of the MCU. Now the future of the MCU won't be like that. So, we'll see how it goes. And
they should put their faith in Black Panther.
It's funny. I was thinking, why didn't they announce Spider-Man 3 when we were doing our SDCC podcast last month? I was like, they didn't announce Spider-Man 3. They announced everything else except Spider-Man 3. Now we know why. Because all this behind-the-scenes stuff.
They're still working on the deal.
Yeah.
And it didn't pan out.
All right, so what do you guys think in the comments? Let us know and give us your thoughts. Do you want Spider-Man to one day return to the MCU, or are you happy that he's finally detached from and being in his own world again? Let us know. Be sure to subscribe and click the bell for notifications. Fabian Wagner is up next, everyone. From the Faruqi Bros, we'll see you next time. Peace out.